You're listening to the Confidence Alchemist radio show with your host, the Confidence Alchemist himself, Keith Blakemore-Noble. To find out more, visit theconfidencealchemist.com. But not before you've listened to this episode of the Confidence Alchemist radio show.
Hello, hey there, welcome to another episode of the Confidence Alchemist radio show with me, your host, the Confidence Alchemist, Keith Blakemore-Noble. Now, if you're watching this on video, if you're catching a video version of this, you might have noticed we're in a slightly different environment today than normal. I'm just trying out a different area for recording these. If you're listening to this on Dougie Stone Radio, or if you're listening to this on Coach on Fire Radio, or catching it up on Apple iTunes or Spotify or wherever else you're catching this on the audio, you might notice a slight difference in the audio. Who knows? We'll play around with it and see where we go. Anyway, either way, however you're catching this, you are more than welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. It's great to have you here. Now, what are we talking about this episode? Well, this episode, I've called it Confidence Modelling. Now, originally, I was going to call it Modelling Confidence because, as you'll figure out as we get into it, that's exactly what we're talking about this episode. We're talking all about modelling confidence, but I kind of realised once I started calling it modelling confidence, it might give the wrong connotations, because we're not talking about confidence for people in the modelling industry, or at least not specifically confidence for those people. This stuff will work for them as well. It's going to work for everyone. But what we're actually talking about is how, basically, what if you could take somebody whose confidence you admire, somebody who kind of gets the sorts of results that you want, somebody who's able to do the sorts of things that you want to be able to do. Now, perhaps maybe you know deep inside you can do them, but it's having the confidence to actually step up and do it. Now, I mean, it could be, for example, somebody who performs on stage. It could be a speaker, it could be a singer, an actor, it could be in a sporting field, it could be in your own business, or in your role at work, whatever it is, or even in your social life. There's somebody who you admire their confidence, you admire how they're able to stand up there and do whatever it is that they stand up there and do, or sit down, or however it is they do it. How would it be if you could take their confidence, find out what specifically it is that gives them that confidence, what it specifically it is that enables them to operate in that way, to work in that way, and you are then able to somehow absorb that into you, so that you are able to start having the same kind of confidence that they had, and doing the same sorts of things that they do, and, dare I say it, getting the same sorts of results that they get. Just think about that for a moment. Excuse me. How would that be? To be able to analyse how somebody does confidence the way they do it, and to be able to absorb that and embody that yourself. Wouldn't that be cool? Yeah? That's what we're talking about today. Modelling confidence. Confidence modelling. How to model someone's confidence. So how would you go about it? Well, let's look at it from a slightly different angle. Suppose you'd gone out for a lovely meal. You had a wonderful meal. There was one particular dish that was out of this world. It was a fabulous dish. It was very, very tasty. And you decide you want to recreate this dish. Yeah? How would you go about it? Well, a common way to go about it, you might sort of try and hazard a guess at perhaps the ingredients that might have been used, and sort of have a stab around at what they might have done to make it all work, yeah? You're not really going to get the results, are you? The absolute best way to be able to recreate those results is to be able to get into the kitchen with the chef who created this dish, the chef who made it. Get into the kitchen with them. Have them actually make the dish while you're there. And you note down every single thing they do, every single step of the way, exactly what ingredients they use, how much of each ingredient, how they mix them together, when they mix them together, how they cook it, how long they cook it for, the temperature they use, the tools that they use, what kind of tins do they use. Note every single thing down. Basically what you're doing is creating the recipe, right? But you're going way beyond just creating the recipe. You're analysing every single thing that they do. And you might even be asking them questions along the way. Hey chef, you had that in the oven for 17 and a half minutes. How did you know it was cooked at 17 and a half minutes? Was it the time? Was it something else? Was it the smell of it? Was it the text? How did you know? What told you that it was cooked at that point? You're really analysing every single detail. Yeah? So you note all of that stuff down. Absolutely everything, including the answers to the innumerable questions that you would have been asking chef all along the way. And you now have your list of written instructions, which you can use to then recreate the dish. And if you have analysed everything that he's done, if you've analysed it fully, and you've fully mastered it, fully got down everything that he's done, or she's done, you're going to have a good chance at recreating the dish, yeah? That's the absolute best way. Now, you might not be able to get into the kitchen with chef. Chances are you probably won't be able to get into the kitchen with chef, right? So, the second best way to do it would be to ask chef. Okay, chef, how did you make that dish? What are the ingredients? What are the steps? Take me through step by step how you make that dish. And then be ready with your notebook, noting down everything that chef says. Again, you're going to get a recipe, right? You're going to get the recipe for how chef creates this dish. Is it going to be as comprehensive as actually being in the kitchen with chef and noting down everything that chef does? Probably not, because the thing is, when chef is doing this dish, they've probably done it so many times, it's kind of second nature to them. They don't always remember every single step along the way. They don't always remember absolutely everything that they're doing. There may be some bits that they kind of forget. Sometimes, not that they forget, because they know when they're making it to do it, but things they forget when they're describing how they do it. So you'll get the kind of overall gist of it. They'll get most of it. There may be a few little bits here and there which you don't get because chef kind of forgets about them. But you'll get fairly close to the results. You get pretty close to the results. And again, if you're keen and you're doing it right, you'll ask chef questions as you go. You said cook it in the oven for 20 minutes. Is that exactly 20 minutes? Does it matter if it's a little over or a little under? How do you know when it's cooked? Is it the time that tells me it's cooked? You say to beat it to a stiff consistency. How do I know what is the right consistency? So you can ask all of these questions because you're there with chef asking all of these questions. And again, that will get you a good recipe that will give you a very good chance of recreating the exact same results that they got. It won't be quite as accurate as sitting in the kitchen with chef, noting every single step of the way, but it'll be pretty close. What if you can't access chef? Because not all of us can get access to Jamie Oliver or to Michelle Hu or whoever it is. We can't always get access to them, right? If we can't get access to them, what could we do instead? What do so many chefs, so many cooks, so many food experts, what do they sell? Cookery books, books of their recipes, how to cook their meals which they create. Now, whether it's a TV chef or whether it's a chef in a top restaurant, because these days, very often the top restaurants, the chefs in top restaurants will release cookery books of how to cook at least some of the dishes that they do. And these recipes will contain the general steps. And again, you read those, follow the recipe step by step by step, you'll get the results. Now, this is kind of third hand, as it were, because you're not directly there with chef. You're not asking chef questions. You're not observing what chef does. You've got it like 2 steps away from that. Somebody else may have got the recipe from chef, They may have asked chef, or they may have seen how chef did it, or chef may have sort of scribbled down the recipe for them, and they've then turned it into the recipe book. So you're now getting a little bit removed, yeah? What the heck's he talking about food for? Bear with me. This will all become abundantly clear when we talk about modelling confidence. At the moment, we're modelling chefing, right? And you'll see how this applies with modelling confidence in a few moments. Bear with me on this. It's very important for us to get these distinctions at this point, okay? So, from the recipe book, and if you're like me, you've tried following recipes, yeah? And it will say things like, cook at a moderate heat for 15 minutes or until cooked. And it's like, what? What's a moderate heat? How do I know when it's cooked? So you see, now we're getting a few steps away from getting it from the horse's mouth. You've got to kind of second guess a little bit here. You've got to maybe use a bit of trial and error. Or you maybe got to look into some other things that chef may have written or published, or you may have to do some other research, or just trial and error. See what works, see what doesn't. Try it out for yourself. See what works, see what doesn't, see how it works best for you. Because the other thing is, even if you follow chef's timings exactly, they're going to be slightly different, because your oven is going to be a little bit different. The equipment you use is going to be slightly different. You're going to get slightly different results, yeah? So there is an element of just trying it for yourself, testing it, seeing what works, tweaking it and adjusting it to get it just right for you. So that's 3 different ways in which we could recreate the dish, the fantastic dish that we had. One is get in the kitchen with chef, follow chef as chef creates the whole thing, noting every single step of the way, bombarding chef with all the questions. Why do we do this? What do we do next? How do we know this is right? Blah, 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 blah. Getting every little bit down. So you've got the entire thing down. It's more than just a recipe. It's a script. It's a detailed instruction manual. If you can't be in the kitchen with chef, you may get to sit chef down and ask him, okay, chef, how do you make this dish? What's the first thing that we do? What are the ingredients we need? Okay, so we've got the ingredients. What's the first thing we do? And then what's the next thing we do? And then what's the next thing? And so on. So you're getting all it. We're kind of eliciting strategies here. And strategies, they're kind of part of this. And they also come into play, strategies. We'll talk a lot more about strategies in a future session if you're interested. Strategies for how we go about doing things. They're different from what we're talking about today. So I'm not going to confuse us anymore by talking about them. But it's kind of the same sort of thing, broadly speaking, at this level. So we're eliciting their full set, their recipe, all the steps that they do to get the result that they get. If we don't have access to chef, we can maybe buy their recipe book, buy their cookbook, and at least have a good glimpse into how they do it. If we can't get any of those, now it starts to get a little bit trickier. But we still don't have to just make it up as we go along and completely guess. Because what we can do is we can kind of do a little bit of digging around, maybe see any TV appearances they've had, any information that they've given there, perhaps look at other cookery programs, other recipes, speak with other chefs, kind of piece together the bits of information until we can create what feels like the recipe and gets us sort of the results that we want. Yeah? But above all, what we don't do is just go, oh, I wish I could make that, but I haven't a clue how to do it. I could never do that. And then never, ever create that dish. Yeah? Now, is this making sense? I know we're not talking about confidence yet, or are we? We'll find out. We've been talking about recipes, but there's a very good reason for this, because it's very important to get those distinctions between those 4 or 5 different ways of finding out how to create the dish. The closer you can get to the original source, the more powerful the results you're going to get, the more accurate the results you're going to get. And it's the same when it comes to modelling confidence. Hurrah! We're talking about confidence now! Yes, we've been talking about confidence and modelling it all the way through. These past 18 minutes have been about modelling confidence. You just didn't realise it. Because, see, here's the thing. Many years ago, 2 gentlemen, Richard Barry